morning, everyone. Happy Monday. It is so good to be here with you. I am excited for a long conversation about what's up in the celestial weather. But before we get going, let's see. There we go. Trying to find the video on Facebook. All right. Give me just a second. Okay. Good morning. It's so good to see you. Things are popping up on my screen. It feels like it's been a long time, but there's been a lot of adventures since I last met with you all. My oldest son got married, and my entire family met up in Seattle, which was pretty amazing because I don't get to see everybody all the time. So I was excited to go, but also very excited to be back. I took myself on a creative retreat this past weekend. I left early because I got bored. So I wanted to go back to work, true to manifesting generator style. So I am excited to be here with you all this morning. I will have a lot to unpack for you all. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about a concept that I've been bringing up a lot. It's something we've been talking about in the celestial weather off and on for the last 2 years. And that concept is your story. The story you tell about who you are, your personal narrative, is creating your experience of the world. Well, how does that work? Let's talk about how does that work, because this isn't just some blah, 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 creative, woo, my story creates my reality kind of a thing. There's actually science behind it, and there's neuroscience behind it. Your brain can only process a certain amount of energy per minute. And if you really think about, especially now, right? If you think about our lives, we are bombarded by millions of bits of data every minute, literally. And your brain, which is such an incredibly efficient organ, your brain is designed to give you the information that you need to survive. Your brain is very, very functional, very, very efficient, and it is well designed to hone in on the bits of information that you're receiving that are relevant to you. Okay, so you're not gonna see everything that's coming your way. You're only gonna see the things that you've kind of programmed your subconscious to pay attention to. So how do we program the subconscious? And let's think about the subconscious as kind of being like a big filing cabinet. Right? Your subconscious mind is your filing cabinet, and your conscious brain is kind of like a search engine, right? So you've got all this data, all this programming stored in the subconscious, in the filing cabinet. That's your story. That's your conditioning. That's your lived experiences. That's your imprinting, your belief systems, things you received from growing up, your family of origin, and it's even your ancestral memory. All of that lives in this filing cabinet in your subconscious, and it's basically running the show. It's really responsible for about 95% of who you perceive yourself to be, your story, right? And that story is really programming the search engine. It's like typing something into Google. It's programming that search engine, your conscious brain, to see the things that match what's stored inside the filing cabinet. You can't create something different or see the world, see the opportunities that are around you. You know, we say sometimes when we talk about manifesting, right? We talk about how abundant opportunities are all around you. And we think, well, yeah, great, but I don't see them. Well, we don't see them because we haven't put a program, or we haven't been telling a story that includes the possibilities of all the options that are around us, that we're literally sitting in, but we can't see because the brain is only able to function and see a certain small percentage of information coming at it. The planets have been laying out a curriculum for the last few years that has been just basically telling us, yelling at us in so many different ways, so many different planets, so many different planetary configurations have been giving us the same message over and 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 over again. And that is, hey, you have to tell a story about who you are and about how you are, a story that includes your capability, your strength, your power, your resilience, your creativity, your intelligence, your abundance. You have to be telling a story that matches what you want. And we are in a season, we are in a collective season, we're in a planetary season, we're in the end of this 400-year-long season that is basically telling us we have to untangle ourselves from all the old stories. Those are our personal stories, our community stories, our collective stories. Because if we keep telling the same story, our lives are not going to change. We're not, this stuff out here, external to us, isn't really going to change until we change what's internal to us first. Because we have to reprogram the brain, and we have to put in new files in the filing cabinet that's in the subconscious of the mind. And the planets are begging us, please get this work done. Get this work done now. It is time. It is time for us to tell bigger, better stories. It is time for us to liberate ourselves from old programming that's holding us back. And the thing is, it's not that simple. Because, as I was saying, the brain is so efficient and it's so geared towards patterns. We can't just click our heels together 3 times and go, okay, fine, I'm going to change my story, da-da-da, right? When we decide to do that, we automatically kind of go against our physiological programming. We go against what's stored in the body. And so really drawing on the part of the brain that isn't logical, reasonable, that isn't running the show because we've been trained to be so logical, and moving over to doing change in the story, changing our narrative, not so much on the logical side of the brain, but the creative part of the brain, blending it with emotions and creativity and storytelling. All those things that we did in 2nd grade when it was raining outside and we couldn't go outside, right? You guys remember that? I have such fond memories of what we used to call manila paper. I don't know if that stuff exists anymore, right? But when things used to get rainy or snowy or super cold when I was growing up in 2nd grade, you know, the teacher would hand out manila paper and crayons, and we would get to like draw and write. And it was my favorite as a diehard introvert who was bullied on the playground. I loved it when we couldn't go outside and we could stay inside and draw and paint, right? But that part of your brain is the part of your brain where you can actually make very wildly intentional changes in your story, because that part of your brain doesn't resist. Your logical part of your brain, that deeply conditioned, reasonable part of yourself, that part of your brain is always fighting, right? It's always trying to hold true to the pattern. It's always on high alert. It's looking for the pattern. It's in defensive mode. And the minute we try to change, it goes into doubt, right? We see that in human design. That's the logical circuit. The logical circuit in human design starts with doubt in that gate 63, doubt and suspicion, right? The logical process, the scientific method starts with a hypothesis that we have to prove or disprove. When we try to make change on that left side of the brain, we go into resistance. We doubt ourselves. We doubt our capacity to create anything better or different. But if we move over to that creative part of ourselves, that childlike, emotional, sensual, you know, that part of ourselves that loves glitter and collage, when we create with that side of the brain, it becomes a lot easier to sneak in a new file into the filing cabinet, because we don't meet with resistance. We meet with possibility, because that side of your brain, that's the sensing circuit in human design. That part of your brain is associated with possibility and expansiveness. It thinks, you know, in big picture chunks. It doesn't break things down and micromanage things with doubt and suspicion. If you want to learn more about how to do this for yourself, how to take back control of your story, I've got a couple of things for you. First of all, next week on August the 14th and 15th, I'm going to be teaching a 2-day masterclass series for you. In that masterclass series, we're going to be talking about conditioning. What made your story in the first place? Because it's hard, if you don't know where your story is coming from, it's hard to reprogram it sometimes. Because if you don't realize, oh, this is where it came from, this is the cause of it, this is the root of it, if we don't recognize that first, it's hard to figure out where to start attacking it and transforming it. On day 2, on the 15th, I'm actually going to give you an evidence-supported way of getting into your brain, getting into that filing cabinet, and installing a bigger, better story. So we're going to do 2 days of looking at, where did your story come from? How is it possibly impacting your body, your life, your money, your relationships? That's what I call quantum wellness, by the way. Sometimes when, you know, my new book is almost ready to come out. It's coming out on August the 20th. You know, it's called Quantum Wellness. And a lot of people think, oh, that's like fitness and the body and diet. And no, Quantum wellness means that the story you're telling about every part of your life, your money, your relationships, your health and wellness, your obviously, as I said, your body, your career fulfillment, your creative fulfillment, your lifestyle, even your connection to source or God or whatever word you want to use. When that is healthy, when the stories you're telling are healthy and abundant and possibility oriented in those key areas of your life, then you are living in a state of quantum wellness. But if the stories that you're telling are saying, I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, I can't have because I'm still living in a polarized dynamic where maybe I'm a victim of something. If those are part of your story, those are going to impact every aspect of your life, and you're going to be working hard, struggling maybe, to be well in every area of your life. You don't need to be struggling. It's actually pretty easy to get in there into the brain and rewire it. It's pretty easy to get into the body even and reprogram it. And so on the 14th and the 15th, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to teach you how did you get to where you are and how can you transform the story. Teresa's going to post the link for the registration for the program below. As I said, also my book, Quantum Wellness, is coming out on August the 20th. If you haven't already reserved your copy, I want to encourage you to do that now on Amazon because I got word from the publisher because it's a pretty hefty book. Paper, the cost of paper right now is, it's really high. So the cost of the book is actually going up to, I think it's going to be about $27 or $29. Don't quote me on that because that's a number and I'm not good at remembering those. But right now, if you go to Amazon and pre-purchase it, it's $22. There will also be an ebook version. I don't think that's up yet, but if you like ebooks, it will be up. And there is also already an audio version that's up and ready for pre-sale. All right, let's talk about this week. I was really going somewhere with what I started with. So, and part of what I want to start with is a gentle reminder that we start today with the sun highlighting the gate 33, the gate of retelling. And so even the sun for the last week has been pushing on, hey, the idea, this theme, hey, what story are you telling yourself and the world about who you are and how you are? And is that story serving you? So we've been exploring the story. Now we're doing this while Mercury's retrograde, Saturn is retrograde, Neptune is retrograde. We've got some retrograde stations in the planetary weather, which, gives us an opportunity to go in, to really reflect and contemplate. And I want to just say, if I was going to give the week ahead, even maybe the month ahead, a heading, like here's the heading, what are we working on this month? We're working on our personal story. And in particular, we're looking at our story through two different lenses. Number one, empowerment, and number two, support. So we start this week off with sort of a completion of a cycle that we began last week where we've been asking ourselves, what story am I telling about who I am, about my power, and about my belief in my support? Do I believe that I am supported, that I am worthy of support, that I can receive support? And can that support, do I allow that support to come in, not only from the bigger, unseen, wildly generous universe, but also through my relationships? There's been a lot of focus on relationship energy. The earth grounds us today in the gate 19, the gate of attunement. It's a longing. We have a longing for intimacy and support. And actually, when we look at where manifesting lives in the human design chart, one of the things that we see is that our capacity to manifest quickly goes up when we're supported, when we got people who have their hands on our back who are saying, I believe in you. That's especially important, by the way, on those days when we have people, when we have days when we ourselves struggle to believe in ourselves or to have faith in the unseen or the yet to be manifest, right? You're always going to have those days. I had one of those days yesterday. Yesterday was very frustrating for me, right? So when we have those kinds of days, it helps. It helps us get back on track when we have people that can put their hands on our back and say, hey, you can't see it for yourself today, but I can see it for you. Let me stand in the gap of your faith for you. That helps us in that manifesting process. It's why community is so important. It's why relationships are so important. It's why family, when it's healthy, is so important. And so we're really looking at that theme of support, and that theme isn't going away. We're actually entering into, starting tomorrow, a brand new quarter in the human design year. So the human design year is split into 4 quarters. Each quarter has kind of a job associated with it that is part of facilitating for us a creative arc that lasts for an entire year. So we start off in the beginning of the year with a dream or an intention or a vision. Throughout the year, the celestial weather supports us in fulfilling that dream. Now, the first quarter starts with really literally dreaming. What are we dreaming about? What are we going to plant and grow this year? The second quarter is really about putting the seeds in the ground, taking care of the baby plants, right? Making sure the garden stays well tended and weeded and watered. Now, tomorrow, we enter the third quarter. The third quarter in quantum human design is called the quarter of manifestation. So that quarter is all about harvesting. I like gardening metaphors, right? It's about harvesting. We're harvesting, beginning the process of harvesting the fruits of our labor. We're really looking at how do we begin to ground and materialize the work that we've been doing. Now, when this new quarter starts, new quarters in the quantum human design year always start on the cross of the Sphinx. That is a direction-giving cross. It's rooted in the G center. It's always some variation of the Sphinx, which involves the gates 7, the gate 1, the gate 13, and the gate 2. These are G center gates. So we're entering into this new quarter. We're reorienting our direction. The sun tomorrow moves into the gate 7, the gate of collaboration, which is one of the places where power lives in the chart. The earth moves into the gate 13. That's the electromagnetic to the 33. That's our sun today. So the earth moves into the 13. So we're not getting away from the idea that the story that we're telling, because that gate 13 is called narrative, we're not getting away from the idea that the story we tell is setting the tone and the direction for our life. And so we begin this new quarter with the idea that we are as supported and powerful as our story allows us to be. In other words, if you're telling a story of disempowerment, a story of victimhood, a story of less than, a story that in any way denies your power, that story will be manifesting in your world over the next few months because you're here to heal that, right? That's actually what you're here to do. You're here to heal that for yourself and for the world. So the quarter of manifestation, when we're in this quarter, the sun transits through all the gates of the spleen center, plus the gate 40 on the will, and I think that one other one I'm forgetting about. Okay, but mostly I want to focus on the spleen because when we're in the quarter of manifestation, the spleen sort of takes center stage. And really what the spleen does when we're looking at the spleen through all the codes and the gates in the spleen, courtesy of the sun, what the spleen is reminding us is that there's right timing, right? There's right timing. If we push against right timing, think about this through the lens of harvesting, right? If we pull the fruits off before they're ripe, they're not going to be any good, right? Or if we miss the season when they're ripe and we wait too long, right? They're going to be squishy and gross. So this particular cycle, this quarter, is reminding us to dial into our intuition and our awareness so that we can become aware of right timing. Now, right timing is also about self-actualization in the human design chart, because that spleen center is really where self-actualization lives, right? It's a place where when we're rooted in our joy and when we have a big enough vision and we're doing the work to set the stage, that we actually, take our talents and our gifts and we optimize them and then we put them out into the world. And so there's also an exploration over this season about your own self-actualization. What needs to happen for you to strengthen and deepen the fulfillment of your potential and fulfillment in general, right? There's also a theme of reactivity and fear, right? Those gates of the spleen are fear gates. Now, the spleen is a center that's about survival. And when we're using it correctly, when we get a fear impulse, it's giving us information that says, hey, time out. There's something going on in your environment that you need to be paying attention to. That's the healthy use of fear. We need that, right? Sometimes stuff is happening. You need to be on high alert, and then you need to go take action to protect yourself. But because we are much more complex than our animal nature, because our brains have evolved to go beyond that base nature, we're not just instinctive beings, and fear doesn't just happen for us because our survival is being threatened. We now have existential fears, right? We have fears of failure, fears of not getting it right, fears of the future, fear that the past will repeat itself and we'll get hurt again. We have fears of failing our responsibility. We have fears that it's going to be too hard or not worth our effort, right? These are existential fears, and all of these fears have the potential to get inflamed right now. And here's what happens. When we let those fears run the show, we actually shut down, first of all, our intuition. It's hard to be intuitive and creative when you're running on fear. In fact, when we look at the biology of fear, fight or flight, right? When we go into fight or flight, or that adrenaline anxiety response, the brain shuts down all of its creative response. You don't want to be thinking creatively when you're running for your life. You want to be highly focused on whatever it is that you need to do to get to wherever you need to be to stay alive, right? And so there's a potential in this season for fear to start running the show. And that fear to be so loud that it drowns out our attunement to right timing. And we miss the opportunity to harvest all the things that we've been working on. With the sun beginning this season in the gate 7, part of what we're also redefining is the definition of power. This is, again, a big curriculum that's been going on all over the chart all year long, courtesy of the planets. And I want to bring us back to remembering that your power isn't in force. It isn't in motors. It isn't in usurping, taking, being first, having more than. That is not power. That is a definition of power that is rooted in low self-worth and a mistaken sense of value around usually materialism. And it's often rooted in shadow ideas like greed or selfishness, or he who finishes with the most toys wins, right? But you don't really win if you die because you can't take it with you anyway, right? So we are really redefining what is power. Now, when we look at where power lives in the human design chart, it lives in two really important places. Number one, it lives in the gate 34, coming off the top left-hand side of the sacral center. That 34 energy is responsive, and it's basically regulated by the gate 20 on the throat center, which is patience. And so we are designed to be powerful in response to right timing. Again, big theme playing out. The 34 is not transiting this. Yeah, it is transiting a little bit later in August, but right now we're really exploring how do we cultivate power so that when the timing is right, we can respond appropriately. That's part of what's going on in this overarching theme. The second place where power lives in the chart is in the 731. That's a channel. It's called the channel of the Alpha in traditional human design. It's a channel that connects the G center, the heart of who we are, our high heart, our higher purpose heart, to the throat center. That is not a motor. That is where our identity lives. So we are as powerful as our story, right? We are as powerful as the story we tell about our power. And that power is recognized and invited because it's projected power. And when we see and understand that our true power lies not in force, but influence, David Hawkins wrote about that, right? That we can be wildly influential over what we create, what we experience, how we collaborate, what we build, how we lead, when the story we tell is worthy of us, is a story that is rooted in our deep understanding of our creative capacity. That's the story we need to be working on and cultivating. When we are in the right mindset and trusting the process, that's the nodes, the gate 22, the gate of surrender, and the gate 47, the gate of mindset. That's setting the big overarching plot outline for where we are right now this year. When we are following our right mindset, cultivating a powerful, positive, strong, empowered, beautiful, capable, amazing story about who we are, then this quarter brings us the signals and the cues to help us see and understand and perceive right timing for opportunities, for expansion, for growth, for true power. It brings us the readiness to be prepared for whatever comes our way so that we can be influential and take leadership. It brings us the intuition, the strength of the right inner signals, and the wisdom necessary for us to understand and interpret what's happening so that we can take a position of leadership and empowerment during this time. And it reminds us to stay in alignment. When we do all of those things, fear is something that doesn't stop us. It is something we can interpret and use correctly, but we actually move out of the reactivity of fear over into alignment and that deep inner visceral knowing of our emotionally regulated state that says, I'm in tune with, I'm in faith with, I'm creating with, co-creating with, collaborating with source, my people, the world around me, in such a big, powerful way that I can afford to be intentional. That I don't have to be reactive. I don't have to let fear or greed or selfishness or lack, I don't have to let that run the show. I can move over here to this other place where I've installed a better story, where I'm rooted in faith, where I'm deeply aligned with who I am, my power, my creative possibilities. And I am step by step by step by step by step choosing intentionally how I'm going to build my world, fulfill my dreams, take leadership, be influential, and create the resources we need both for my own personal life, for my family, for my loved ones, for my community, and ultimately for the world. That's what's up for us this quarter. And all of this sort of, in the backdrop, we've got Saturn going retrograde, we've got Neptune retrograde, both highlighting gate 25. Hand in hand with all of this is a deep dive exploration of why am I here? Why am I here? What is mine to do in this world? Okay, it's big and it's beautiful and it's powerful and it's really important because we're halfway through this very, very intense season. It's going to go until the end of next year, end of 2026. And it's a big, big season that's really an invitation for us to take back our creative power. To stand strong, maybe not even take back is maybe not even the right word. Maybe create from our natural creative capacity in a way that maybe we've never done before. So cool times, big times, important times, but you cannot abdicate your power at this time. There's nothing outside of you that is more powerful than your story. There's nothing outside of you that's more powerful than you. And for the sake of the good of all, we have to reclaim our power, because the more we reclaim our power, the more we can create space for others to do the same. And the more we stand in that deeply empowered space and we let the heart, which is where the leadership energy lives, it's where the power lives. We let the power of the heart take over, then we're going to be just fine. We're going to be just fine. We're going to be fine anyway. Eventually, we're all going to be fine. But right now, we can accelerate being fine by getting back into a good story, a true story about who we are and how we are. All right. Our EFT setup for this week, even though I don't feel supported, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Let's clear that story out because you are supported. And the flower remedy for this week is Vine. Vine is our flower remedy for this week. This is a great, great flower essence for transcending ego and moving into collaborative energy. And collaborate means, to work with the people around you, to be a team player, but it also means to collaborate with Source, to co-create with that infinite power that's available to you simply by asking for it. So that's what I got for you this week. Have a really great week. Be well, take good care of yourselves, and I will see you next week. Bye.